And now for something completely different. Am I allowed to say that? Am I about to get sued? Who knows? Here's Pen Night Radio. We are back. One True Promotion is here. I am honored to be on with our One True Promotion board, basically. Let me introduce myself. As you know, I am PK, unofficially knighted by a fictional character, which means you do not have to call me sir. You could call me Alec. I am the director of broadcasting at One True Promotion. I tend to handle our broadcasting media. And now the chief operating officer will say a few words.
Hi.
Hi. This is Andrew. I see what you did there. Very good. Andrew, introduce yourself.
Well, I am Andrew Bast. I am the COO of One True Promotion. Also resident jokester.
That's right. That's right. That was good. Thank you for starting us on a note of humor, seriously, because this is going to be a pretty serious discussion. And that just leaves. Uh-oh. What happened? Where's your audio? What happened? Hold on a second. Headphones.
Wait, I got it.
Oh, there it is. Okay.
Yeah. Woohoo. I am Brielle Elise. I also go by Ellie. I am officially the director of editing and design at One True Promotion.
That's right. Welcome aboard. This is your first broadcast with us under your new title. It's very good to have you on board.
Thank you.
Those of you that are watching us on YouTube right now, on Facebook, this is for the foreseeable future, the leadership at One True Promotion. When you see us, you will see one of us or you will see all three of us. We are the people that you can come to for any information regarding One True Promotion or what's going on in our community. And of course, between the three of us, you can get great advice on broadcasting, marketing, and editing and design. So thank you, Brielle and Andrew, both for being here. And now, this is a special broadcast. When I spoke last, I was on here solo talking about something that we had discussed extensively in private. I was airing my disappointment and thoughts for the future regarding a controversy that's been going on at NaNoWriMo, National Novel Writing Month. Now, in case you missed that in the audience, National Novel Writing Month, or NaNoWriMo, is a forum. Essentially, it is a website. It's an initiative, a company with a board leadership that began in 1999, and via a customizable website where you can plug in your word count and write the title of your book and get badges and fun things like that. It also has a newsletter section that emails you with all kinds of wonderful, encouraging things. And of course, no website is complete without a forum. The NaNoWriMo forum became very elaborate over the years with worldwide users, but there has been a very gross, disturbing controversy recently regarding one of its board members. Now, I have some comments here, by one of its moderators on the forums. And that moderator is accused, and there was an FBI investigation conducted into their crimes against some of the minors on the site. They were sent links in the forums, these minors that without their consent, redirected them to some very disturbing websites that were sexual in their content. I try not to use the word because I'm afraid that we'll end up getting flagged in the video. But basically, this minor was guilty of grooming minors, which is something very disturbing to hear about. I think we can all agree. at such a just something that was so close to our hearts for this to happen at this company. Before I go any further into the nitty gritty of the board remarks and all that, I first, of course, would like to invite you both to speak on how you're feeling about the whole thing. And you could go in either order, you know. Andrew, you could start if you want.
Well, I just think that in terms of the program was something that represented something good for a lot of people, and that's something I think that we should take into consideration as we go through this program. And even though a lot of people are discontinuing their accounts and distancing themselves from Nano, it should be said that the program itself and how it was formed was something that was useful to people and will be useful to people in the future, whether you're doing Nano yourself or some other organization takes on that project. So while there is something going on within Nano right now, just keep that into consideration as we kind of go through the day here.
Yeah. And Brielle?
Yeah, I mean, we were speaking about it in our own private group chat throughout the week as things were unfolding. And I remember saying, like, I support the spirit of Nano. Like, you don't necessarily have to support the organization where it stands currently, but the whole point of it was to give you that structure, like we talked about a couple weeks ago, having that challenge. But you can implement a writing challenge, an art challenge, any kind of challenge to get yourself going and give you that like kick in the pants at any time. It doesn't have to be November. It doesn't even have to be through the website itself. There were some years where I participated in Nano unofficially, where I wasn't logging online and making it as public simply because I was a little shyer at the time or had things that were still like really bare bones development. But it still pushed me to put out a draft or at least get some work done. So I think celebrating that and the spirit of challenging yourself in general is still something we can support, but we don't necessarily have to like log our words and participate in the organization currently.
Yes, very well said. Yeah, for those of you listening, NaNoWriMo's controversy right now, you know, basically, if you're new to this subject, if you didn't see any of the posts going around, you know, just imagine that NaNoWriMo is the type of community that can make younger writers feel very seen and like they're part of a community. As we all know, the idea of any online forum, you know, back in the day, it was MySpace, then came Facebook, then came all the other social media sites, and now TikTok is a big thing. And before that, there was just AOL. There was people, you know, meeting up in private chat rooms. And often what I would see on AOL was, you know, like storytelling and, you know, role playing and game playing and things like that. I mean, this is something that people do. It's something that's very important to children when they're exploring community, in addition to stretching their own creative, you know, muscles for the first time. So just imagine you're, you know, a young person on this very esteemed forum for the first time, and one of the moderators, who by my understanding is a staffer who's supposed to be keeping the site safe, is actually making the site quite unsafe. The issue really wasn't even so much just the fact that the moderator was guilty of redirecting these kids to this, you know, horrible, disgusting website, but so much so that the report was filed, and the staffers for the longest time seemed to be stalling the investigation. They seemed to be trying to act like it was just going to go away, which, as any of us know in this society, tends to be the norm until very recently. I think that the Me Too movement was very influential in this, but until very recent years, time and time again, any kind of misconduct scandal, you end up seeing people getting together and trying to defend the guilty party rather than the party that was trying to find the right word here, shall we say, poorly treated, treated unjustly. That's what I was looking for. So it's a very upsetting scandal for a number of reasons. What I really want to do with this video is I want to just give the whole team here. I talked a lot on the last episode, so I don't need to say a whole lot, to be perfectly honest. But I really want to give Andrew and Brielle a chance to weigh in here on what the situation is presently. Now, of course, the NaNoWriMo board has responded to all of this, and I have the statement they made in front of me. Now I could share my screen, or I could just read it off, or we could handle this whatever way the two of you think would be best. But yeah, what do we think? Do we want to share screens, or
Yeah, whatever works. Is this the wide sent email, or is this like the responses they were doing in the forums? Because currently they shut down all other forum responses aside from like two threads that they're responding to questions in.
Yes. What I have in front of me is the first post they put out on the forum, which was very elaborate and very detailed, because I noticed that the email they eventually sent out was more like a watered down version of that. So I just went in and I grabbed the original, which has all the juicy deets to discuss. So if you guys are interested, I could just present.
As long as it doesn't have anything that's like that has any words that are bannable.
Well, actually, I don't need to project it on screen. Actually, I could just read it off, and we could respond to it bit by bit if that's better. So yeah, we could play it safe. What's up?
I just want to know that if what I didn't read fully the forum post, if that was the original, and if that is more in detail, I'm very interested to hear this, because the email that they sent to the community at large does not reflect those details from what I understand. And I think that's even more disappointing.
Worse.
Yeah.
Right. That's even more disappointing because not everybody uses the forums.
Right.
So if you're trying to get in touch with the community at large, giving them this like brushed under the rug, wishy-washy response.
No. And just like for the people at home who didn't read the email or didn't get the email, the way I interpreted it was more of a plea for people not to leave Nano.
Yeah.
More than anything. Like it was more like a panic email than a organized response, in my opinion. It was just if we could read the email, but it's very panicked, it's very thrown together, and it doesn't really seem to calm the waters as much as it's supposed to.
Definitely not. Yeah. So this came out 9 days ago, and it is handled, respectfully, in the sense that parties aren't named. There's no actual details about the crime given. So it is a safe thing to read on air, but it's very elaborate. This is posted 9 days ago, November 13th now. So I'll just start at the top and we could just pick at it as we go. I'll stop periodically to ask you guys what you think, because I know that specific things they bring up, you have a lot to say about. So here we go. This is from NaNoWriMo board on the NaNoWriMo forum. Subject: board response to complaints about forum safety and the safety of minors. To our NaNoWriMo community, the board wishes to explicitly and transparently respond to complaints that have come to our attention about, and they give 2 topics. 1, the staff's handling of a former forum moderator, let's call them Moderator X, alleged to have abused their position to groom minors. And number 2, concerns about the overall safety of minors on NaNoWriMo forums. On 2023-11/7, we became aware that this has been a topic of discussion on the forums and has been responded to at points by NaNoWriMo staff. If you haven't read the board's general response to recent complaints, please reference the thread with the subject board response overviews plus pausing the forums. And basically, if I could stop real quick, all that post said was that they were going to pause the forums indefinitely. And then in this thread, they say, with respect to this topic, we will speak to 4 perspectives. So they're speaking to 4 perspectives. There's 4 major categories that they wanted to comment on. This was a lot for me to cram into my brain the first time I read it. So I'm actually really glad to be revisiting this with the 2 of you. But number 1, they wish to address facts about how this was handled by NaNoWriMo staff in response to folks who asked for greater transparency. 2, the board's findings. in response to the requests for a board investigation. 3, commentary on who should be held responsible in response to requests to remove certain staffers. And 4, what the board is calling for to ensure community safety are requests of NaNoWriMo staff. Now, I just wanted to stop before we even get into the first one and just say right off the bat, you can tell that the board is responding to specific requests that came out of the community. All 4 of these points that they just brought up are them, basically responding to popular demand. These are the things that the community is asking for. They want greater transparency because there was no transparency in how this investigation was handled. They want to know that the forums are safe and that it's still safe to be a part of Nano. They want the person who is guilty of this removed, which is strange. You feel as if there's proof, you shouldn't have to ask for that. But this is in response to a direct request for that staffer to be removed, which was kind of the cornerstone of the controversy in the first place. The thread that went around, if you guys all saw it, was basically detailing how the person remained active on NaNoWriMo for a long time after they were called out to the rest of the staff, which to me is unacceptable before we even get into anything else. I don't really know if there was like a law that would have been broken if they had removed them without enough evidence. I don't really know, but I do know that that was a major cornerstone of this whole thing. So the first thing is facts about how this was handled by NaNoWriMo staff. Staff received a direct complaint about Moderator X on 2023-05-03. It was accompanied by supporting documentation speculating that Moderator X was abusing their position to groom minors and lure them to an online adult space outside of NaNoWriMo. The complaint asked for immediate removal of Moderator X from their volunteer position and a ban of Moderator X from NaNoWriMo.org.
No, let's stop there real quick because there's one key word. There's one key word in there that that kind of predates all this. Volunteer.
Yes.
There's no law that protects him as a volunteer.
No.
So
absolutely not. They were at liberty.
They are 100% in their right to remove said volunteer at any given time if there's any type of evidence or scandal that come out about what they allegedly would have done. So they could have gotten rid of him day one that complaint was filed. I just wanted to point that out there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't expect the board to touch upon this because this is getting a little more into the nitty-gritty details. It's not just like grooming and luring. It was allowing adult members from that other website into the youth forums.
Yes. Sure.
And that's even worse. So there was starting to be a mesh of these two communities, and that was creating a space that wasn't safe for minors.
Yes, absolutely. We're off to a pretty bad start, honestly. It's like, right away, if you're listening to this, you can see why people are so upset with the organization at large, not just with the one moderator who was guilty of this, because right off the bat, we know that it's a volunteer, like Andrew said. We know that this space was shared with a very dangerous second space, like Brielle said. It's just not a great start, but we're going to keep plowing through it.
There's two differences, right? There's volunteer and then there's paid contracted employee. If there's a contract of any kind, that would give them the authenticity or the authority to be like, all right, well, we can't fire you right away, but we can have you over here in a suspension for a few days until we do an investigation. But volunteer, there is none of that. There is no contract. You just get rid of them. Yeah. So there's that difference, and it's that's where you see, with police officers, if a police officer is accused of doing something, most of the time they'll get put on unpaid suspension or paid suspension when there's an investigation going through, and that's because there's a contract that they have that they can't just sever without just cause.
Right, and it's the same with teachers. It's the same with people in all manner of organizations. The fact that this guy was a volunteer should have made it easy. But the next bullet point is on 2023-05-04. This is the next day. NaNoWriMo staff acknowledged receipt via email to the party who sent the complaint. Also, on the same date, 2 staff members close to the matter discussed Moderator X extensively. Their meeting generated 4 pages of meeting notes, which the board reviewed. 4 more bullet points. Moderator X had already been identified as problematic by one of the staffers in question. The document outlined earlier concerns about Moderator X. After a discussion of the new allegations, staff decided to remove Moderator X immediately. That's the first bullet point from the meeting that the staff had to discuss this moderator. The next one says, broader discussions about how to ensure child safety on the forums was noted at the same meeting. Several smart safety measures were suggested, including fingerprinting and policies and procedures for managing data security and underage interactions, both in the forums and in general for staff. They also mentioned reinstating a contract agreement for moderators, which notes say was phased out in 2017. So I'll stop there for a minute just to comment. As I think the 3 of us can agree, this is only getting worse as we go.
Yeah.
So there was some sort of protection in place, but it was phased out in 2017.
Phased out, yes. That's exactly right. Brielle, you were saying?
And now they're putting that back into place in 2023.
Well, I find that detail is missing in the email that was sent out.
Yep.
So isn't that very funny?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
well,
absolutely.
See, at this point, a lot of people are trying to give the board of directors some credit because the prevailing theory was all these complaints went undetected from the board because it never raised to the level that the board was able to identify the problem and then go for it. However, there is one way that the board is directly at fault, whether it's the same board that instituted the policy or not. And that's removing that policy in 2017. Whether they were there 2017 or it's a new board that was sworn in, whoever was around when that policy was revoked, the fact that there was nobody thinking that we need to reinstitute that policy is what falls on the board of directors more so than anybody else.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I believe I mentioned this when we were speaking about it privately as well. Like, just because the board didn't hear about what was going on until several weeks later doesn't mean that the problem wasn't occurring and that people had reported it. Based on what I read, it was reported like a month ago.
Yeah.
And
during
that
FBI
time,
investigation.
Yeah.
But you see, that's where I sort of I can understand the board's point of view at that point, right? Because if Alec is the board of directors and I'm the person in charge of the moderators, and Brielle, you come to me and you say that moderator X is doing this, and I decide not to report it to Alec, then there's nothing the board could really do in that matter because they wouldn't be aware of it. And that's sort of the issue that we ran into with this person, is that the people that were in charge of the moderator allegedly covered it up out of friendship or based off of the forums that I read early on.
So I'm not necessarily blaming the board in that matter, like them being, not in the know. It's at that point I'm also aggravated with the general staff or whoever's in charge of the forums and moderation on the day-to-day, because the board isn't. They're the highest part of the chain. But that means that the general staff were negligent in this matter and either dragged their feet on a formal investigation or didn't really do too much, or potentially just didn't look into it as quickly as they should have. And during that time, they should have pulled moderator X and maybe yes, they're a volunteer, but you can still kind of put them on some form of suspension.
Absolutely.
Just be like, hey, you're not scheduled for the next couple weeks as we look into things.
Absolutely.
Because that's where I'm kind of surprised though, right? Because we're getting all this heat on moderator X, allegedly doing all this stuff, and rightfully so. because they have the evidence to actually prove that moderator X did this. There's a lot of heat going on the board for not knowing this and for certain things like the policy that we discussed.
Yep.
But I don't see a lot of heat for the people that allegedly covered for moderator X, and they're equally as responsible, in my opinion, as moderator X.
They were the first line of defense.
Yes.
They were the people that this was reported to and that were asked to file to report to the board and report to the FBI. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, they were complicit in this to some degree, and that's what really upsets me.
Absolutely. The next 2 bullet points from this meeting that took place all the way in 2023. Another idea mentioned was to potentially consider shutting down the forums sometimes on the weekend. This in relation to difficulties meeting community moderation needs. A rough communications timeline was documented. The plans for how Moderator X would be communicated to, and also how Moderator X's transition would be relayed to the community. Those are the remaining bullet points from the meeting that took place. Speaking to the handling by the staff, the bullet points continue from the board. A NaNoWriMo staffer reached back out to the person who submitted the complaint and claimed they could not find evidence of wrongdoing on the part of Moderator X. The same staffer also committed to some of the aforementioned safety measures to address forum safety in a more general way. I just want to note that that was what went around on Instagram. That was the Twitter story that went viral recently, talked about how this staffer reached back out to the person and said there was no evidence. That was, let's call that, if you will, the spark that lit the dynamite stick. So I'm glad, I'm obviously glad to see that noted here in the board's notes.
Yeah. The other thing too is that I had mentioned it to Nick, my husband, and he did because he's a forum goer on several things.
Mhm.
And so he did some digging, and he said that around that point it looked like the not so savory website that the miners had been directed to had been scrubbed.
Yes.
So it wouldn't surprise me if Moderator X or somebody else in the general staff had started scrubbing evidence in the nano forums as well. Of course, you would try and cover your tracks.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if they're not finding as much evidence at that time, that could be it, because scrubbing had already started to occur.
Right. And there was mentioned in the general thread of discussion that Moderator X was supposedly the moderator on this website as well. So they were at liberty to do so. Continuing the bullet points, former users continued to rehash the original complaint and to raise a growing list of new grievances about Moderator X during the same period. Moderator X's behavior on the NaNoWriMo forums began to deteriorate in the weeks thereafter. That is an entire bullet point. There are no further details given. They just say that his behavior deteriorates, his or hers. I shouldn't be, but yeah. Despite earlier internal agreement about Moderator X needing to be removed, they were not immediately removed from moderator duty until more than 6 weeks after the initial complaint. It was widely speculated that they were removed for an unrelated violation. This is the board saying that the people complaining are speculating that Moderator X was removed for an unrelated violation. They are not claiming any knowledge of why Moderator X was removed, which I find interesting. The safeguards that were discussed by the team and the measures that were committed to by a NaNoWriMo staffer in the response to the complaint were never put in place. That is their final bullet point on the staff handling of this. So when I sent the two of you that email that I sent saying, hey, here's some discussion for all of us to unpack, what do you think? What I had actually processed that very night was a meeting was held, discussions took place, nothing, none of the plans were carried out. That's where the conversation about the staffers ends for the board. After that, the next bullet point is the board's findings, their direct findings. But yeah, so whatever they discussed, nothing was actually done, interestingly.
I mean, the interesting thing about that is that he was removed 6 months later from the initial claim, or 6 weeks.
Which is still a lot.
And which is still a big amount of time. and it was for an unrelated incident.
As always, we hear this
Which
all the
means
time in these
it
sorts
could
of
have been
stories.
anything else. Could have been
Anything
So that
else?
anything
means he
else
had,
but the aforementioned alleged crime.
Yeah.
and as I said, that means that he had, and anybody else who potentially were aiding this person had 6 weeks of time to get rid of evidence.
And continue to have access to minors on the forum.
Right.
Because there was no ban in place. That's the part that really gets my goat. Like, I know people are going to destroy evidence. I'm not saying it's right, but I know that once they get caught, they're going to want to try to act like nothing happened. The thing that really gets my goat is that during this investigation, there was not at least a suspension put in place to ensure
Right.
that this potentially dangerous person did not continue to have access to minors on the forums.
Oh no, that
Yeah.
gets me too. That's
Yeah.
insane that this wasn't handled. I'm saying that the general staff saying that there was a lack of evidence. Well,
Yeah.
of course there's a lack of evidence. They're going to go
Yeah.
back and cover their tracks, and they're like, "Oh, there's a lack of evidence, therefore we can't ban them." And it's like, that is not true.
Yeah, exactly.
You
Yeah.
could have done more about this, looked into it sooner,
Yeah.
put this person on suspension. Like, action should have been taken place as they properly did an investigation to collect evidence. You don't just like do one and then the other. They should simultaneously be happening at the same time.
It makes you wonder, well, actually, so the board is very good at anticipating what people are going to say, because what I was going to say was, if there is a board, there should be a division of labor here, which makes what you're saying possible. Somebody should be able to do A, B, and C, and somebody should be able to do D, E, and F. But as this continues with the board's findings based on their current understanding of events, they kind of start to talk about why things weren't done in their own way. And this is the part that I know you guys are chomping at the bits for. So let me just try to read through it quickly. The board believes the NaNoWriMo staff had sound ideas and serious conversations around how to handle Moderator X and how to shore up forum safety for vulnerable community members. However, we see large failures around execution. You don't say. As the board attempted to diagnose why that was the case, we found several root causes, and here they are. Internal staffing changes. The chain of responsibility and accountability became blurry, and knowledge transfer was spotty when certain people left the organization. It did not help matters that many roles and responsibilities shifted among those who remained. This was true of both full-time staffers and major volunteers. Too few people trying to do too much. Capacity to moderate forums with the appropriate degree of oversight shrank at a time when the forum activity grew. The organization was too slow to mitigate this problem. A better course of action would have been to urgently restore moderation capacity, or to downsize forum size and scope if moderation capacity couldn't rise to community needs, including safety needs. Overpromising and under-delivering. Beyond a general lack of staff capacity and a general environment of staff overwork, there were moments when staff members promised things they should not have. In some cases, this was because they did not have the time or resources to take a better course of action. In other cases, there was a lack of execution and insufficient oversight of employees who were not executing. And finally, lack of transparency, community accountability. The board does agree with complaints that the situation was exacerbated by a lack of transparency around staff responses. Hard feelings on all sides could have been avoided by holding more regard for maintaining community trust. At times, staff did not speak publicly about specific issues in order to avoid mentioning names. They were sensitive to avoiding slanderous comments at the expense of community welfare. This also led to staff responses feeling evasive and vague. Next is who will be held responsible. But let's just definitely take that in for a minute.
What is the board doing?
Yeah.
Like, are we just twiddling our thumbs every year, raking in donations, and not actually looking at the people who are under them?
Sure sounds it, doesn't it?
Because, like, that's insane to me. And also, I think it's interesting to note that they said that there was, it seems to be quite a large egress of employees around the time things were starting to pick up. And, like, yeah, like, ebbs and flows happen. But then looking into replacing those employees, doing those other solutions that they had mentioned in the bullet point. Like, why did things drag out? Why would you let things just kind of go at a snail's pace when you know that popularity for the event and for the organization is picking up? You'd think you would put more care into it and get the people staffed and ready to go. If there's poor handover between new employees and past ones, that's a lack of training. These are simple business things that need to just be handled from top down.
Oh, they make it sound like it was a sudden thing. Like all these people left and it was very sudden and they didn't have enough time to put everything in place. That's how they make it sound in their responses. I don't think that's necessarily true. I feel like they did what a lot of corporations do, and we see it in the teaching field right now, where there's only X amount of workers and there's all this work. So instead of going out and making new initiatives to get new people, they start putting all the people that are currently on staff on triple and double duty and trying to get them to get by or squeak by until they can get more people to come in. That, I can't know for certain. I suspect that's the case because I don't think that a lot of people that are leaving Nano was very sudden. I feel like if people did leave and it was that sudden, they could have found a way to quickly fill in those spots if they really wanted to.
If there was a sudden like exit of employees, why?
That's the other question. Why?
What are the conditions that are causing your employees to leave?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean, they're saying, just to go through them again: internal staffing changes, too few people doing too much, over-promising and under-delivering, lack of transparency, community accountability. This is the kind of thing. This is the kind of thing you hear from a self-made company that's, say, trying to publish your book, for instance. When there's a disagreement about who's doing what, over-promising and under-delivering, resulting, of course, in people leaving the organization. This is not the type of blueprint I would recommend, and I'm not saying that they have any control over who stays and who leaves, but just like the lazy phrasing of all of this, that we overpromised and we under-delivered. Like, this is not what I would be saying when there is a potential FBI investigation involved. I would make it my first priority to ensure that safety measures are being put in place, no matter who's on it. There would have to be, they say that a meeting took place. They say that they were working on it. If the concern was, for instance, banning moderator X, but having no way of stopping them from coming back in under a different name, and they had to talk about cybersecurity on the forums, whatever, staffing changes or not, this should have remained their top priority.
Right. Yeah. It's just, I'm like blown away. I'm like, who's writing your press releases?
Right.
Like,
I know.
You might want to look at them too.
Yeah, so
seriously.
we've already discussed one way in which the board is directly responsible for this problem. I think the board is told on themselves for this part. They're 0-2 for this section, in my opinion.
Yeah. You're admitting to negligence.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
And in a situation that's not good to be negligent in,
No.
I mean, this isn't a controversy about how a NaNoWriMo winner never got their badge. This was a very dangerous, potentially criminal act that took place. And just to revisit both of your original points, you would think that in the first place, the account would have just been, the volunteer would have just been removed. And now we're hearing all about how, well, we tried to do this, we tried to do that, but we overpromised and we underdelivered. We're still not doing too well here.
You're shooting yourself in your foot by saying that. That's awful.
Right. Yeah. So who will be held responsible? This is the juicy bit. So this is November 13th. That is now almost 10 days ago. And this is what they recently said about who will be held responsible. Both the staff and the board clearly recognize that there were failings. The board recognizes that there have been calls for the dismissal of several staffers. A quick note about how boards of directors work. So here we go. The only person on a nonprofit staff who, quote, reports to the board is the executive director. In our initial posting, we talked about how it is not common for boards to be involved in the day-to-day operations of an organization. Only in emergency situations, only in emergency situations, let's just put a pin in that for later, such as this, do we even comment publicly. I want that to be clear, as dismissing individual staff members is not what boards do. Let me just pause real quick.
So is a mass exodus of employee not considered a critical situation?
Well, they did say emergency situations such as this, but I wanted to comment on dismissing individual staff members is not what boards do. So who is it that dismisses staff members at NaNoWriMo then?
Apparently the executive director is what they said.
Yeah,
Yes.
it would be whoever is the highest in their general staff. So
Yeah.
the fact that so then that's them admitting that the highest person in our general staff was also negligent in suspending moderator X while conducting an investigation on them. Or they just don't have somebody in that position.
Right. That's something that flashed through my mind as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
So as we're going through this, we want to make a note that the executive director has officially been named as the first scapegoat for this whole situation.
Correct.
So if they're not under fire, then we got a problem. So let's continue.
Secondly, we're making it clear that we cannot publicly discuss specific personnel issues for privacy reasons. What we can say is that certain HR issues were already in the process of being dealt with before any of this came to the board's attention. Much speculation we've seen publicly about what HR action has or hasn't been taken by the organization is wrong. Generally speaking, at any organization, dismissal might be warranted if the employee was given all the correct resources and support to perform their job function and still failed. I have a big problem with that statement, but I'm going to hold that till later. The kinds of questions any company has to consider before dismissing an employee include things like bullet points. Did the mistakes made by the employee involve duties included in their written job description, or did the mistakes relate to duties that were out of scope? Bullet point number 2, did the employee have the proper training or qualifications to do what they were asked to do? Number 3, did the mistakes made by the employee violate specific policies or break any laws? Let's put a pin in that one too. And finally, number 4, what is the company's standard approach to job performance issues? E.g., a 3 strikes rule, a warning system, coaching and training, all with question marks. I have about 99 problems with what I just read.
There's a lot of problems with what you just read.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. Let's start with the warning system.
Yeah.
For the issue at hand, even
Yes.
if this was the person's first offense, it's a bannable offense.
It is a bannable offense.
Let's just put that right off the bat there. But based on our knowledge about what has been discussed earlier in the show, Moderator X has had several problems.
Yep.
So it sounds like Moderator X was not on strike 3, but maybe strike 17 or 18 at this point.
Yeah, let me redirect you both to the beginning. Let me redirect you both to the beginning real quick. A very vague but telling statement was made. Moderator X's behavior continued to deteriorate in the weeks after. So they admit up top that this moderator's behavior deteriorated. That's the word they choose. And yet now we're getting bullet points about how we should be considering what constitutes a bannable offense.
If they were exhibiting blatant misconduct at this point in the weeks to follow, why on earth would you allow this person to still roam the forums?
And more, and just to piggyback off of that, why are you throwing all these bullet points out at us, suggesting that basically in a Hail Mary, a desperate attempt to convince us that there was something stopping you from doing something about it, that we have to consider labor rules and 3 strikes rules and whether or not those policies are put into place. When we're talking about, I acknowledge at the top that the actual proof of these inappropriate websites might have been scrubbed. However, if you're going to tell us that their behavior deteriorated in the forums, you are at liberty to dismiss a staffer. Basically, they're trying to confuse us here. They're throwing out all these sentences at us. 3 strikes rule. Did they break any laws? Were their duties out of scope? I would say that deteriorating behavior, whatever that may be, usually falls into out of scope or breaking laws. And it's now kind of dawning on me why they use the word deteriorate above.
0 for 3.
Yeah, 0 for 3 is right, for sure. So I know that many of the complaints we've received...
I don't know what else to say about it there, you know?
I know.
It's even if this is the person's 3rd strike in this deteriorating behavior, how do you not get rid of this person before that? Like,
I know.
What are the situations in which case that there's 2 strikes or 1 strike before that it's not bad enough to remove them even temporarily from the site?
I just want to check something real quick.
But keep them employed.
I just want to check something real quick, but you guys can hash that out while I'm doing that for sure.
I was trying to find this in the...
It's baffling to me. I mean, just listening to that is it's so problematic.
Oh yeah. Okay, I just wanted to pull this up real quick for all of us. So I will give the board So I will give the board a little bit of leeway here, but I'm talking like a ½ inch. But I just looked up sexual grooming. Grooming or child grooming is the act of deliberately establishing a relationship with the child to prepare them for abuse. As an action in and of itself, grooming does not have criminal penalties, but facilitation of a criminal sexual act is considered a crime. So when it comes to redirecting people to websites, it sounds like legally Moderator X had some room to wiggle out of, according to what I just read. But it still doesn't answer what our big question is here at the circle, is if you have a problematic volunteer, why do you not just kick them out? Why don't you just bump them, get rid of them, and then talk about cybersecurity after that? Like,
it's the safest thing to do. It's the easiest thing to do. And it doesn't hurt anybody to get rid of that person momentarily while you do an investigation.
So, yeah. I'm scrolling back through the forum a little bit just to see some of their responses.
Yeah.
And in response to another user, the board replies, they give a description of 501c3 nonprofit status for boards and all that stuff. And then it says, one important thing to understand in terms of the decisions we're making is that we have fiduciary responsibility to the organization. So I'm assuming they mean just like funds and such. Mm-hmm. We are not staff or management, and we are not, nor should we be, actively managing the organization. We have requested a pause to the forums due to multiple serious complaints pending investigation and in service of ensuring that no further harm is done as we get to the bottom of things. We have asked the staff to suspend everything for the time being. We realize this is sudden and disruptive and not at all ideal. The board was not aware of any of the issues that are happening until 5 days ago. Given the large volume of information we're receiving and the seriousness of the claims, we support temporary closure. We apologize for the disruption we know this has caused. So if they're being like, hey, this isn't our fault, we just fund the project, we didn't know anything, it's our staff and management's fault, basically. And I'm like, oh, okay, great. But here people are funding your organization and project. Are you just hiring whoever underneath you? Do you not check in on these people? Like, I know you're not supposed to manage them, but
Yeah.
who are your staff? Like there's a page on the board. I don't know if there's
I
a
think the
page on the
position we
staff.
mentioned above was the aforementioned position is chief executive.
Executive director.
That person is the person who does all this and is supposed to go to the board and report all this.
Yes.
So all this responsibility you're talking about doesn't fall on the board. It falls on this one individual, which is its chief executive, which we have yet to hear if they received any consequences at this moment.
Or a statement from, does this person exist?
Right.
Yeah. It's a good point, because we haven't heard if this person existed yet. All we know is that they threw this person under the bus and said, look, we're not responsible for this, but the core blame falls on the person in this position.
Yep.
The board is involved simply because the FBI is involved. There's legal ramifications that are happening, and that looks bad for getting funding as a nonprofit.
Yeah.
So they're going to shift the blame as much as they possibly can. Why on earth have they not asked this chief executive just to make a statement? Why are they making all of the statements as the board? Where is your above management? What are they doing? Why haven't they said anything? Unless they're all complicit in this, which is insane, if that's true. Like, it just feels like the way they're handling the public feels really strange. It just doesn't sit well with me. I just can't.
I know that many of the complaints we've received allude to egregious oversights, and that some might reach a conclusion that firing the people responsible is logical. But it has to be said that public opinion is very different from the organization's obligations under U.S. labor law. It is not always the direct fault of the employee if something was not done or was not done well. Nevertheless, we do find that there are clear employee management and staff effectiveness issues, and we are still investigating accountability there. That is the end of who will be held responsible in these remarks.
They don't name at all who's going to be responsible.
No,
essentially, let's rewind. The person who is responsible for this, as named by the board, is the chief executive.
Mm-hmm.
And then we ended with, based off U.S. labor law, they can't hold said individual responsible without a further investigation of seeing if they're worthy of being fired or not. That's what I heard.
Mm-hmm.
So the person directly responsible who's been tossed under the bus for this issue can't be fired because they have some sort of obligation to the community and to the board, to which they have to do more digging before they can formally remove that person from position and replace him or her, them.
One would think.
That's a minefield.
It is. This is a minefield, for darn sure. And I'm no lawyer. So the best that I could do is just read this off and just discuss it really from a civilian's point of view. I do have general summaries of major U.S. labor laws in front of me, though. And right under, where is it? I just had it. Let me go back to it. Here we go. Employee protection. Most labor and public safety laws and many environmental laws mandate whistleblower protections for employees who complain about violations of the law by their employers. Remedies can include job reinstatement and payment of back wages. OSHA enforces the whistleblower protections in most laws. So I'm reading that. It sounds as if they can't find definite proof of this person having done so, what they're afraid of is moderator X accusing them of unjustly firing them and then potentially having to pay them wages for it.
Well, I mean, moderator X doesn't even involve in this conversation. He's not involved in the OSHA requirements for this because he's not an employee.
Right.
The people that are that fall under this category is this chief executive, whomever
Yeah.
they might be, and whatever connection they have to moderator X.
Right.
And see, that's fine. That labor law makes sense because essentially they're saying that Brielle can't come to whistleblow and say that I did something without there being sufficient proof that I was complicit in it. If moderator X was an actual employee, this would not cover him anyway because there was sufficient evidence that would lay the groundwork for his firing. Where this might protect the chief executor is them saying that even though he is responsible for these things, if they find no evidence that he's directly implicit in this situation and he was completely unaware, he or she, then yes, the whistleblower laws would protect him or her.
Here's workplace safety and health under U.S. labor laws. The Occupational Safety and Health (OSH) Act is administered by OSHA. Safety and health conditions in most private industries are regulated by OSHA or OSHA-approved state programs, which also cover public sector employers. Employers covered by the OSHA Act must comply with OSHA's regulations and safety and health standards. Employers also have a general duty under the OSHA Act to provide their employees with work and a workplace free from recognized serious hazards. OSHA enforces the law through workplace inspections and investigations. Compliance assistance and other cooperative programs are also available.
Mhm.
Here, as I said, I'm still listening. I just found a screenshot from, I guess, one of the other lead moderators in the forum, response to people's complaints, right? It was her and one other moderator. Now, I don't know if the two of them lead all of the mods or are in charge of the volunteers. I'm not sure what their position is in the hierarchy. But her response to all of the complaints was saying that, they think it's a really great community, which is why they're trying to make this work. I'm not sure. There was apparently a bomb threat at some point too, in addition to all of this, which is crazy.
Yeah.
As for banning harmful users or predators, we take accusations really seriously.
Yeah.
The other mod and I both examined the details from the most recent situation, as well as checked out social media sites, and we didn't see anything that would warrant banning. We got to be consistent and thorough and fair, or at least try to. When community flags led to that account being blocked, we let it stand in order to discuss it more and hear from more people. In general, we don't jump straight to banning unless it's extreme or we follow a series of steps. How is this not
extreme?
extreme when there's
Exactly.
physical screen caps of not just moderator X's behavior, but also screen caps that I know exist of users from that other site saying, hey, why is this site getting scrubbed? Why can't I access the forums at Nano anymore? What's going on? So how are those are physical things from these people?
Well, I guess that's the question, right? Because she says that when they investigated, they found nothing. But there was clear evidence of scrubbing. What did you count scrubbing as something as evidence?
They're not going to be on social media. Yeah. These.
I mean, I understand why they went to social media because sometimes when people do a crime, they post it on social media. Like one of the funny things that I always laugh at was back when COVID hit and we were teaching from home. We were told that we had to be in front of the computer at home during the school day. So my school day is 8 to 3:30. So if you're not in front of the camera teaching from 8 to 3:30, then there were some serious consequences. And what happened was, some people got caught going down to the shore and they posted it on Facebook and they got in trouble. So that's the thing. It's social media is good and also bad when it comes to people getting caught for doing things they're not supposed to do.
Well, yes, but I would say generally speaking, when it comes to these more underground explicit websites, those particular people with those particular interests aren't exactly like loud and proud on social media all the time. You know what I mean? So I don't know if you would find that sort of evidence on like so and so's Facebook or whatever. You know what I
No.
mean?
Right.
Unless they're very stupid.
Yeah.
Which people tend to
Unless
be.
they're very stupid, but but it sounds like that's not true. It sounds like they were
Yeah.
very thorough in covering their tracks. So
Right.
doing a very like an ask around the office, hey, have you noticed this behavior? And looking at their like Facebook or whatever and being like, oop, I don't see anything, is a very like tacit response to all of this.
Yeah. No,
Like I said,
absolutely.
I don't see how the scrubbing doesn't count as evidence. Like, hey, these forums are disappearing. I mean, you should be able to go back and see that from their end as a moderator that, hey, things don't look quite right. You know?
Yeah.
To wrap up the letter and address a few responses from the community, if you guys are cool with that, I don't want to keep you all night long, but if you're listening to this, folks, I hope that you're at least being provided some clarity on this issue. If you are concerned about it, as most of us are, hope you're enjoying listening. The last thing the board says is their own official recommendations. They've started a list of things that they think need to be in place for the safety of the community. Those are a temporary closure of the forums, which clearly have already been implemented. We do not believe the forums can open until they can be well moderated and until we can be assured community safety measures are in place. Background checks for all employees, directors, and volunteers deemed to be in positions of power. We will explicitly define what positions of power means. We are in favor of using a background checking service that is on par with those used by schools. Training for all employees, directors, and volunteers around online safety and best practices and online community moderation. This will include training on working with minors. A full audit and possible revision of job descriptions and an audit of whether employees are fully trained and qualified to work within their current job scope. Personnel changes have caused scope creep for numerous employees, and this needs to be looked at. Finally, a full audit and possible revision of policies that relate to community safety. This will include reviewing contracts that volunteers sign and an audit to make sure all volunteer commitments are current. Since the original complaints that we received and investigated, it is coming to our attention that there may be additional concerns about child safety. They basically tell them where to contact them. If we have suggestions for additional measures, we're supposed to let them know. In terms of commenting on this thread, they're going to leave it open for 36 hours, and that was on November 13th, so I believe it is at this point closed. We will also put comments on slow mode. We will have, since we have asked all staff and volunteer moderators to completely step back, we can't keep up with rapid fire comments. So this is just communication with the board. That's what they want to do. They want to turn NaNoWriMo's infrastructure into the same ones used by schools. They want background checks. They want training. They want training for how to work with minors. They want to fully audit job descriptions and policies that relate to community safety. This is the board's agenda going forward.
I mean, that's wonderful. I'm saddened that this hasn't happened sooner, since this is like, yes, it's a nonprofit, but like it's also for educational purposes.
Yes, I have so many questions.
It's like, I know that like, hey, listen, it's not our job to manage our organization, just fund it, but funding it in the way of getting resources and background checks and all that stuff put in place for your employees to run and manage said company is still part of your job. Like that, like
no, it's wild. It's really wild. They're introducing in 2023 background checks for employees, directors, and volunteers deemed to be in positions of power. They want them to be trained on online safety and best practices and online community moderation, including training on working with minors. These are
minors
just
attending your site for a while now, even having like events for them and so on. There should have been training for your adult staff on how to best educate and handle minors. That should have happened years ago.
It's wild, isn't it? Yeah,
I don't know how
absolutely
background
wild.
checks weren't a thing at all.
Yeah.
I'm just
found
saying. I mean, I work for a nonprofit. You know, I work for New Jersey Boy State, and they do all this. I
Yep.
mean, everything
Yep.
that Alec mentioned that they're going to be doing, Boy State has been doing this for years. Like, I just couldn't fathom how a group that has been around since 1998 hasn't figured this out, that you need to do these things to keep your community safe. I mean,
I found a
who's running the
response
organization?
from somebody who I guess had been a moderator in the past. I mean, I don't know. I'm not looking into this person or anything, but their response was, merely the rumors of what was going on was enough to keep my kids far away from it. I've been on this site since 2004 as a participant, moderator, and I'm currently one of the Facebook mods. So they have their own Facebook Nano group as well.
Yep.
It has been going downhill with an incredible amount of speed for the past few years. That lines up with what Andrew you're saying, that this mass exodus of employees is probably not all at once. It's probably been trickling for a while.
Yep.
That would line up with what this person is saying. Current administration is a significant part of that, as well as the move to discourse. I don't know if they meant Discord there or not. I'm not sure. NaNoWriMo has lost the community that kept a lot of us here, and I'm saddened that my own children won't get to experience that safely because of how toxic and abusive things have become. Frankly, if it wasn't for the Facebook group and the friends that I have made here, I may have left years ago. I don't want to. More than anything, I would love to see this event come back in its former glory, but in order for that to happen, changes must be made at every level. So this is from somebody who has been with the organization since 2004 as a participant, as many of us,
That's
a moderator, and somebody.
Yep.
Yeah.
When was this organization founded, Alec?
1999.
1999. And this since 2004. 2004.
Mm-hmm.
It's been going downhill, according to this eyewitness testimony.
In just over 31 days. In just over 31 days, that will have been 20 years ago.
She said that like she started in 2004, but it was going downhill with an incredible amount of speed for the last 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if COVID maybe played a part in employment or things like that. But
no doubt. But the fact that that an organization founded in 1999 has virtually no oversight on who they're hiring, to the point that almost 20 years later, they are now introducing background checks. It's that's not a good look.
Still. No.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
But it sounds like there were a couple mods who were just overwhelmed by these complaints and may have lashed out at the community or weren't that transparent with the community. But that goes back to the official statements from the board saying that's all true, because there was just so much oversight on all parts of staff, basically.
Yeah. I mean, the thing that is most upsetting to me, and we have discussed this, all three of us have agreed on it, but the thing that is most upsetting to me is that it definitely appears as if the investigation was either botched or it was tipped off. And the only reason that any of this came to light, according to the person who posted on Twitter, which means, I don't have this notarized or anything, but according to the person who broke this on Twitter, they said that their concerns were not seriously received and that, to their knowledge, there was never an FBI investigation filed, but they had filed an FBI investigation shortly after uncovering the incident, which I believe is why the board is responding at all. This would be a good time for them to post a serious response to all of this if in fact there is an FBI investigation taking place. Now, I've noticed on the forum here that there are a number of users that are being very supportive of the board. They're saying that strangely, this is strange to me. We're getting into opinion territory here now, so forgive me, but strangely, they're saying that they feel very validated by the board's remarks. They're saying that they feel seen and heard, and that the transparency is making them feel like their concerns are warranted. I personally do not think that is the issue. I personally feel like the issue is that the site is unsafe, and that it took this much pressure for even the smallest amount of investigation to be followed through with. So I see no reason why I, as a broadcasting director here at One True Promotion, should even consider continuing to redirect viewers who could be adults, who could be minors, who could be all of the above, to continue using this website. I personally would have to hear that an investigation was done, safety measures were put in place, the guilty parties are no longer involved with the organization before I even breathed a word of Nano on here again. That's just me, because I myself would not want to be responsible for sending somebody there.
No. Yeah. No. That other previous moderator had also mentioned, like, if you have a Facebook account, there are a ton of Nano groups there, including the official group. But there's like other welcoming spaces that are around on the internet.
Oh yeah.
And outside in your school, in your library, anywhere that isn't just Nano. Like, this isn't the end all be all of writing communities. It's a big stain on them.
Yeah.
Since sure this is the largest one, but that doesn't mean you can't find your people and get inspired and find like a workshop group or something, like they are still out there. And, of course you always have to be careful with wherever you're going and what you're doing. It's just really sad that it's a bummer, right? Because it feels like yeah, unfortunately, the abuse of minors or potential grooming or like just predators in general, they can appear, unfortunately, in any community.
Sure.
And so this hitting very close to home for us is like, you don't think it will happen until it happens, right? So we were I know all three of us were just very, very heartbroken, angry when we first heard about this, several days ago. And it's like, it just really broke my heart. Alec and Andrew came and did a wonderful program that I got compliments on after you guys were here at my library, and talked about writing and publishing with our teens who are now going to hopefully be coming to our new writing workshop program that I'm going to be doing for the teens. But like, they had such wonderful questions. They were so inquisitive, and it's like they're trying to figure out how to like get into writing and be seen. And I can't imagine any of them or any minor like being promised by adults, like, here I am, I see you, but come to this other place. Like, that's it just like, as a youth services librarian, somebody who works with minors every day, so does Andrew, so does Alec, I couldn't, like, once I read through everything a day later, I was like, I cannot in good conscience associate with the organization as it stands. Do I completely blame the board? No. They have certain responsibilities, but yes, the other responsibilities fell on the staff, and it's very, very unfortunate that it's taken so many years for them to put in proper business applications when it comes to their staff. But and it's wonderful that they're doing all of this. That's great. So I understand some of the users feeling validated. There was a very loud group saying, this is happening, please do something. And when the general staff couldn't keep up with it or really transparently handle it, they went to the board. So, it took so much pressure to get here, which is incredibly upsetting to see, which is what makes us all very angry about it. It's great that the board is responding to it now and is handling it. I'm sure those people who have been complaining do feel seen because now the board is addressing it, but it just feels a little too late. So now with the FBI and all the legal ramifications that are going to come from this, that's going to take time. Like a full top-down
Yes, it is.
reorganization, background checks, new employees, proper training with minors. We're talking about years and years of completely rebuilding the organization.
Absolutely.
And so I can't in good conscience associate it with it, recommend it to our youth.
No.
Like, that's just kind of where I stand at this point.
Yep. Absolutely. No, I agree 100%. I mean, I'm just reading a comment here now. Let me see this. I'm glad to hear this is from a user who I will apologies for earlier. This time I will keep them anonymous, but this is a user on the forum replying to the board on a discussion thread about censorship regarding all that's being done on the forums in response to this. They say, I'm glad to hear the board agree that affairs should have been escalated well before November 9th. A few members of staff were very good at, whether intentional or accidental, emotionally manipulating the events. If the naughty users could just stop causing problems long enough for things to be fixed rather than bandaged, things would have been better. That is, and ought never be, the responsibility of the users. And I completely agree with that. Yeah. Unfortunately, the thing that's really turned me off to associating with this organization is that while I acknowledge that this is a very complicated problem when you have so many users using your site, it just simply seems to me like not enough was done. And what we're hearing is the same old story about how, we realized we got caught with our pants down. There are a number of reasons we couldn't do X, Y, and Z. Here's all the laws that back us up, and we ask for your patience going forward. It's like you said, Brielle. I feel like, maybe I'll make a new account one day when this is all dealt with. But for now, these other users, they want to continue running with this community. I wish them the best of luck, because it sounds to all of us like not much is going to change at this present moment.
Yeah, no, that's unfortunate. And this is something that we grew up with, that a lot of us use as inspiration to get our own books done. So to kind of see where it has gone and where it's kind of fallen to is a little disheartening.
It is. What I'd like to encourage people listening to think about is what Brielle said. There's a lot of writing communities out there now. One True Promotion right here. This is a writing community. When we post a video, there is a comment section. You're free to interact on it. The beautiful thing about, Instagram and Facebook and YouTube, where a lot of this, our content posts, is that if there's anybody making such a ruckus in the comment section, as opposed to on a forum, we can simply delete and report the comments. To YouTube, to Instagram, to Facebook, to whoever. Fortunately, we tend to operate in spaces where there is a lot more scrutiny. And I think that's where NaNoWriMo really failed us in the last, 3 years, especially. I would just reiterate my point from the previous video to everybody listening to be careful of online communities. You can see us, you can see our faces, you know who we are. You know that, we're teachers, we're librarians and library assistants. We are, youth services directors. We got all that here at One True Promotion, and we really don't bring on anybody that we would consider to be sketchy. I mean, there are no unsafe situations here. And the people that we network with, that we continue to network with, there, appear to be no unsafe situations there either. So, I would like to just end on an encouraging note that One True Promotion will always be here to create community where there is none, because that's what we've done so far. And whenever a community is lost, that is what we are well equipped to do. For instance, we have a Discord. The Discord is something we would really like to grow and cultivate along with our website in the years to come. We've had a little manpower issue here as well, but when it comes to launching some of the ideas Andrew has, some of the ideas I have, and that Brielle has, our Discord server is going to be a big part of that. There's going to be a place where you can interact with us directly. And I'll tell you right now, if I go in there one day and I see somebody making remarks or posting links they shouldn't be, I would just delete them. I mean, I wouldn't even hesitate to, because I just don't have any tolerance for that. And I know, Brielle, you feel the same way. Andrew, you feel the same way. So this is an organization where, fortunately, we're not catering to thousands of people just yet. We don't have, a complicated system to filter through our decisions with. And, I'll just be the first to say up front that sort of behavior is not tolerated here.
If anything, this situation for us as a small organization is a big what not to do.
Yep.
So when it comes to eventually growing our little community and our Discord and stuff, we're going to, I would assume in the future, be looking for moderators ourselves. Like, we can moderate it currently, but I think that would be something beneficial for us, knowing now how important ethical moderators are in the online space, especially with minors involved. This was just a big lesson in that. And I think it's something that we can take from, as well as other organizations can take from. This is a big learning lesson for any other organization that deals with young creative people.
Yep. Andrew?
Yeah, and that's the other thing. Just make sure that if you are participating in any forums of any kind, that you're being careful, that you're not putting yourself out there, you're not doing things you're uncomfortable with. Anything you do on the internet is accessible, so make sure you're not doing anything that you're not supposed to be doing, and always protecting yourself and your data.
Yep.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. There's a lot of phishing scams and all sorts of things that happen. We are millennials, so we grew up with the evolution of the internet and have seen a lot of different phases of it. And there's some stuff that has gotten better, whereas some stuff has gotten worse. So always be vigilant. It's kind of easy to fall into traps now. Just be very careful. I've been looking into like a VPN and things like that. Just make sure all of your stuff is super solid and on lockdown. Don't give away passwords if you don't know somebody. Like all the general cyber safety stuff. There's tons and tons of free resources, especially at your local library, on cybersecurity, and you can talk to pretty much anybody our age and above about such things.
Yeah. Amen. Thank you both, for being here. Really, honestly, everything you do for One True Promotion means so much to me. I don't know where I would be without either of you, frankly. It's really been a team effort going to all these events, setting up all these publications, doing all these, shows and broadcasts. I mean, I just can't, overemphasize how much every, task you complete, every bit of advice you give, every post you look at, every marketing campaign you set up really does keep this engine running. So just to have the two of you here to dig into some of this and, encourage our viewers really means the world to me. So thank you again for being on Pen Night Radio.
Thank you. And to anybody who still wants to participate in Nano, like myself, I'm still participating, not with Nano, but with the spirit of it. Like I said, you can make your own challenge. You can give yourself that structure. You don't have to do it or be seen on some big website or organization. You don't even have to donate Like, you can just do it for yourself. Make your own challenge. You can do it anyway. Like, don't
That's right.
feel
No.
pressured into participating in any of this. Do your own thing. As long as you're being creative and pursuing your passion, that's all that matters.
I think this is the perfect time for Once Your Promotion to promote the 365-day challenge. It is something that you could do on your own.
Right.
You could set goals for yourself. What do you want to accomplish in a year? And you strive every day to accomplish it. And it could be something as small as I got up and I went out to the mall today and met some
Mhm.
people. 365-day challenge is safe. It also is life changing. Alec has gone through it. He's going through it now. I've gone through it. It's also been done by several celebrities, and it's changed their lives. So it's definitely a challenge that could be applied to writing. It could be applied to acting or any other field.
Mhm.
And it's really just a challenge to better yourself in a general sense.
Yeah, I mean,
Yes.
there's all sorts of challenges. The art community has many of them. Like, there's Mermay, where you draw different characters as mermaids and mermen during May. There's like Inktober is very popular. You're just drawing in ink, anything black and white. Like, there's so many challenges out there. Things that have writing prompts, anything to get your ideas churning. Um, that's all that really matters. Is as long as you get something on the page, you've already done something great.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you both again. And yeah, you're listening to Pen Night Radio, where our slogan is slay your personal demons and arm yourself to write your best content. There are many ways of doing that, as Andrew and Brielle have pointed out. So if you're, running with us and vibing with us and listening to what we have to say and taking up your own goals, we want to hear about it. Post a comment. Let us know what's going on. Let us know how we can help you. Maybe we could post a particular topic in a future video. That's exactly what you've been struggling with or want to hear more about. We've got you. Once Your Promotion has your back. Pen Night Radio is just one of those programs. So I think we could wrap this up. It's been an hour 30. I am really grateful to the both of you again. And I look forward to seeing you at the next event, which is coming up very soon. Next Friday, I believe. It's either next Friday or next Saturday. I will put up a post about that. But
Yes.
we are. I'm very excited for what the future holds. So thank you everybody for listening, and you're free to go to Google. I wouldn't recommend Twitter, but you're welcome to go to Google. Welcome to go to the NaNoWriMo website and familiarize yourself with this issue. Please do familiarize yourself with issues involving digital communities before you consider joining one. If you are following Once Your Promotion and you're interested in joining our Discord, you do not have to join our Discord yet. You could start by just watching the videos and following us, which is safe to do until such a time as you want to take the next step of becoming one of our collaborators. And we thank you for your time, and right on.